Welcome to HALFY HOUR, our Scripts Gone Wild spinoff, where we sit down with the folks who help make our reads happen, and we drink and shoot the shit and kind of just do whatever the fuck we want to do, because that's the time that we live in right now. And with me today, we have the gentleman from the Screen Drafts podcast, Mr. Clay Keller and Mr. Ryan Marker. Gentlemen,
hey,
welcome.
Cheers.
Welcome.
Cheers.
Wow.
Cheers.
This is the broadest alcohol choice we've had yet. It was just beer.
Yeah.
It was just beer. Billy Ray, you know that I am your biggest cheerleader and I support you unequivocally. I have not yet had a chance to listen to or watch one of these, even though I think that they're a fabulous idea, and I've been encouraging you to get into the podcast space for a while. So I did not realize that we had to coordinate our drinks until today. So I had I done my due diligence and prepared, we could have all been on the same page. But I was just sort of like, I've got beer, and everyone else also fortuitously happened to have beer. So that's what we got.
What I've found is that more times than not, the drink that is chosen is like a vodka and tonic. Like it's happened this is our 6th or 7th one we've recorded. 4 of them have been vodka and tonic or vodka and seltzer.
Interesting. That's not one of my go-tos, vodka-based cocktails. I'm usually a very, very simple Jack and Coke type of person. Or Ryan suggested gin. But gin is the only liquor that I don't do because of a college experience.
Interesting. Everybody's got one. It's all
everybody
different.
has that liquor. Everybody has that. Mine's peppermint schnapps. Everybody has that one liquor they won't touch because they got super fucking sick in college. And
mine's rum. It's funny.
Oh.
Yeah,
yours is rum. You didn't say that when I brought rum to our Pirates of the Caribbean recording.
Well, I've been trying to break that spell throughout the years that, certain things are off limits because it's really a knee-jerk, stupid, pubescent thing when you think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm denying myself years of good rum because I was an idiot when I was 17. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
I've been using the quarantine time to get into mixology. I actually invested in a bar, and so it's like I've gotten it fully stocked, and that's been kind of a hobby the last few weeks. And so rum is something that I've never been a fan of, and I've been really diving into it because I want to try to experience more of it. And I found some amazing fucking rums. I'm not gonna lie. Really,
rum is basically the brown vodka. It blends into things so easily. It disappears.
Quote of the whole meeting: rum is like a brown vodka. That I think rum aficionados would be spitting up their rum right now.
Yeah.
First of all, who are the rum aficionados? And 2, I feel like I made my analogy clear.
You certainly did.
They both mix in a way that you kind of forget that you're drinking alcohol.
Right.
Well, I'm curious, what is the worst experience with alcohol you've ever had in your life? This
is a great question, Billy Ray, because I really want to hear Clay's answer.
Oh, I was going to say, Ryan is always Johnny on the spot with these personal anecdotes that he wasn't prepared for.
Yeah,
right.
Mine's a great story, but Clay, I really want to hear about.
We always kick off screen drafts with me asking Ryan a personal question that he's not prepared for, and he has a story without fail. Has a story just that he is able to rattle off on a moment's notice, which is something that I do not have a skill for. That I do not have that sort of recall of my past. To
4 decades of a wild ride, Clay.
I'm starting to think that Ryan makes them up.
He's just an expert
is
level
so dedicated.
Improvist. He's just a great improvist, and it just
exactly.
No, I don't. Nothing has been made up so far. I will make them up eventually, but right now they are.
I won't know. At some point, Ryan, they'll become all fiction, and
everything, including last night's Cronenberg story. That was a vivid story, Clay.
On his deathbed.
That was podcast gold.
Oh, my Cronenberg?
Yeah.
Yeah, for the Cronenberg episode, I asked everybody what their most Cronenbergian personal injury was.
Oh wow, that's a question.
There's some gnarly stories.
It was a wild opening. I thought it was great.
Yeah, my worst experience with alcohol, like I said, it was a gin, and it was like junior year of college, because I was a goody two-shoes, and I didn't start drinking until I was almost 21. I didn't have a drop of alcohol until like 3 months before my 21st birthday.
Wow. I forgot that you grew up in like a Mormon commune.
I really didn't. I grew up in an evangelical Christian sort of situation, but I was very much by choice a goody two-shoes. Like my parents were not overbearing, and they weren't, even though we went to that church, they were not, we didn't read the Bible in the home or even really pray before meals that much. It was,
you weren't fundamentalists.
No, it was more like a social thing. But neither of my parents were really like, iron fisted. So it was really just a choice that nothing makes me more uncomfortable than conflict. And when I would hear stories in high school of like, oh, the party got raided by the cops and we all had to run, like I wouldn't even be there, and I would get like freaked out and be like, oh my God, what would ever happen if I got in trouble?
Cops.
Yeah. So I was a goody two-shoes by choice, but yeah, in college, when I started drinking, I wanted to be a fancy like mixologist, just like you, Billy Ray. Like I was like, okay, I'm gonna learn some cocktails, and I got really into making gin and tonics. You got your gin, you got your tonic, you got your limes. I was really into cutting the limes and the whole deal. And it wasn't even like a party. It wasn't even I was trying to like impress a girl or anything. It was just a couple of dipshits hanging out in someone's fucking on-campus apartment, watching. What did we fucking watch? I think we watched the DVD of the Best of Will Ferrell on SNL.
Excellent. Such great drinking
a DVD that I lost that night, which is the biggest regret of all of this. But I just lost track of time. I was making gin and tonics. I was in the groove. I was pouring the correct amounts of everything and throwing in the lime, and I was just like handing them out. And without even thinking about it, I probably consumed, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 gin and tonics over the course of a couple hours. And it snuck up on me in such a way that, yeah, that night, in my dramatic recounting of the story, I like to say that like, oh, I almost died of alcohol poisoning. But I really did, like, for hours, I was blacking in and out. The guy's apartment I was in, who wasn't even a really good friend, he just had to take care of me. He like sat there on the couch and would like tip me over so I could throw up into the trash can. Like I was like vomiting and passing in and out for hours. And then he like walked me across campus back to my apartment, and I was full on like Weekend at Bernie's, like my arm around his shoulder, just like walking me back. And it must not have been as bad as people who are hardcore drinkers, because people be like, oh, I blacked out and I have no memory. Like I have a decent memory of this vaguely, but this is the worst for me. Like I vomited up so much gin that I haven't gone back.
That would make me think twice about drinking gin if I'd had that experience as well.
Did you return to that Good Samaritan and sort of give him, some money, or like how did you pay him back? Did you know him?
Oh yes, I knew him.
Oh, okay.
He was a friend, but not like a regular. Not like
I thought it was just a random
friend. Dude. Yeah, no. It wasn't a random guy. No, it was somebody who I was friendly with, but I am forever indebted to him for keeping me alive.
Was his name Neil? Because he sounds like someone whose name would be Neil.
Neil, yeah.
Not Neil, no, but sort of in the ballpark of Neil. He was a Logan.
Perfect.
Oh, okay.
Logan, that's
was he a frat guy?
Logan. I think he was in a frat. Yeah, it was the semester. So I was a film school kid, and I hung out with all film school kids, or art kids. But
cool.
It was
Logan sounds like the local drug dealer that was like kind of friends with the film kids. But
Logan was a real
didn't really know movies very well, just like to listen to the guys talk.
He was a real preppy business major.
He sounds like someone who's 44 years old and listens to nothing but Bob Marley.
But there was a semester when all of my friends went on semester at sea. Semester at sea was a big thing at Chapman. And so for a semester, all of my friends just disappeared all at the same time. So I sort of started hanging out with an entirely new group of people that was a different speed. Good guys, but a different speed.
Ryan, what's your perilous drinking story?
Well, Billy Ray, what do you think about this? I mean, I feel like there is two avenues that you go with the story. Number one is the crazy story that comes with drinking. And then there's like the blackout story. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like your first time fucking blacking out.
Right. You go, but I remembered actually a worse one.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I feel like there are two categories. My blacking out one was insane. I went to a bar where my friend was a bartender, and he's like, oh, I got this sake. It was like a thing in the late 90s where everybody started drinking sake. And like, yeah.
Where are we, Ryan? Are we in Los Angeles?
Oh, no,
are we in Philly?
This is Philadelphia. It's in college, my sophomore year. Yeah. And he starts giving me like sake bombs, all these insane drinks. He's like, this is like variations of sake.
Yeah.
And when I think back to this story, I remember the drinking and then not much after that until I woke up, and like I had this intense pain in my head here. Like I just passed out, fell off the stool, cracked my head open. And like from there, like they patched me up like and stopped the bleeding and got me home, put me in a cab. Somebody went with me. Somebody took me into my apartment. I mean, like,
so they took like a bar rag and tied it around your head and
brought
you home.
Yeah, basically, which is horrible. Like when you think about it, I could have died. I could have died.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's why I could never be a bartender. Is like that. It seems like bartenders have this sort of like Hippocratic oath that they take to like make sure the drunks get home safely. And like, oh man, that
he was my friend though, so like
much.
We were just irresponsible. I mean, like he was just and every drink was free, so I was like, give me another one,
Dude, free drinks. That was the other one I just remembered. Is 5 or 6 years ago, I got fucked up in an unholy fashion at a open bar wedding.
Oh, good.
That was it wasn't in the city. It was in NorCal at a like retreat in the woods. So it was a thing where we went up and everybody had hotels and everybody took like cabs and stuff. And there was this sprawling retreat where there was like the reception hall, but then there was just campfires and stuff spread out all over. And it was an open bar, and I got people who know me will know what level of fucked up this is. I got so drunk that I was on the dance floor with glow sticks dancing, which both of you guys can imagine a little bit how drunk I would have to be for that. But then beyond that, I was picking up half empty drinks off of tables. I was, when the bartenders left, I hopped behind the bar and was pouring things out of unmarked bottles into cups and drinking it. I got so fucking drunk. Some of the out-of-town family of the groom was from Boston, and I sidled up at a table next to some aunt and just pretended I was from Boston and did a Boston, like a cartoonish Boston accent.
Oh, no. And
either she was humoring me or she was also so drunk that she couldn't tell what was real and what wasn't. But I remember carrying on a like Boston. Oh my God, the fucking Big Dig has just been going. They said it was going to be done 20 years ago. This fucking Big Dig, and she would. I had carried on a conversation like that with a woman for 30 minutes. And then that evening, the buddy that I went up to the wedding with, and we shared a room, and he said that he was convinced I was dead a few different times over the course of the night because I stopped breathing.
Yeah.
I want to see
that's your go-to story, Clay, for the future.
Yeah.
That's the one.
I want to see this Clay more.
Yeah, exactly. I want to see glow sticks Clay far more often.
Well, let's go to some open bar weddings and we can talk.
We can recreate that at the Arrow anytime.
Well, I'm going to share my worst drunk story ever, which is probably a little more seedy. But
excellent.
I can imagine.
Well, this would have been
like an Abel Ferrara movie.
I would have been like 20 years old, and we were going to a party in Skyline, Alabama, which was about 45 minutes away from where I grew up in Pisgah. It's up on the mountain. And the house that the party was at was right next to Skyline High School, and they were one of our rivals in basketball, to set that stage a little bit. So we went to this party. We didn't really know. It was me and 3 friends. We didn't really know a lot of people there, but we were drinking. We were doing lots of keg stands. I was known for my ability to do keg stands back then. And so I could do like a 1.5 minute keg stand. Like,
wow,
just long periods of time. And so I'd probably done 6 or 7 keg stands at that point. So I was wasted. And then at a certain point, the cops showed up. And I was normally I wouldn't have cared, but I was so drunk that I was like, oh, fuck, the cops are here. So I took running out of the house, ran through the bean field next to the house, hid in the bean field for like 30 minutes. Then I ran into the playground next to the high school, to the school, and I hid in the little tube thing in the playground for like another half hour. Then, for some reason, the door to the gymnasium was open. So I hid in the gymnasium for like an hour, and I was slowly making myself around to see if I could see if the cops were still there. So I left the gymnasium finally, and there was this old abandoned gas station across the street, and I passed out next to the gas station until like 4 a.m., and then I woke up.
On the ground?
On the ground, in the bushes. Uh-huh. I woke up in the bushes at like 4 a.m., and that's when I saw the cops had left. So I sort of snuck back there. All of my friends had gone and left me because that's what good friends do, right?
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So I looked around, and like I called a couple people, couldn't get a hold of anybody. So still in a drunken stupor, I just started looking for cars parked in the yard because people were passed out everywhere. Cars parked that had keys in the ignition. So I found one, hopped in a car that I had no idea whose it was, and drove the 45 minutes to the Piggly Wiggly parking lot where my car was. The best part was the gas hand was broken. The speedometer didn't work. Everything about this car was designed for me to get pulled over by a cop.
And you didn't.
I didn't.
Wait, hold on. And this car had the keys in the ignition because we were inside of a movie, or because
it was the car that belonged to the people who lived at the house. And this is the South. People leave their keys in the car.
Yeah, it's true.
So that leads me to a quick question.
I used to leave my keys in the ignition.
That's fucking insane. Whenever I saw in a film when people would check the vanity mirror, or the sun, whatever those are, the visor for the keys. I mean, as a person, I don't know. I feel like I didn't grow up, that far away from the rural life, but like that seemed completely alien. Like that's a behavior I'd never seen, except for in a movie.
Oh yeah,
as a convenience.
In the South, people leave their keys in their car
because they can't be bothered to put them in their pockets, or
it's because I think part of it is because at least where I'm from is so rural. Like the houses are so spread apart that crime is not something you really worry about. Like, I think it's just a matter of, like, you just feel so comfortable that
you know your neighbors.
Yeah,
you know everybody in every house.
Sure, but even such, even if you think they're not going to be stolen, is it, like, a terrible inconvenience to keep them in your pocket? Or is it, like, a statement?
Like, are you judging the South right now?
Always. Constantly.
We get a lot of things wrong, but this is
I just have questions. I just have questions.
No, you're absolutely right. It's honestly a societal mistake. I mean, I would do it, and I never got into trouble with it when I lived at home. But when I started going to college in the city of Philadelphia, when I started living there, I started instead of keeping them in the ignition, I would put them under the seat.
I would just be worried that I would accidentally lock myself out of my car.
Well, I would keep the doors open. I don't know about you, Billy Ray, but that's what I would do. And then I learned the hard way, and I had my car stolen. So then I never did that again. So, but I do think it's a country mouse, city mouse type of thing. I know where you're coming from, Clay. That you were a little smarter, but Minnesota is a smarter state, I think, than a lot of the states. I think we can all agree.
I grew up.
I will agree with you, Ryan. Ryan, I will full-throatedly agree with you on that.
I grew up in the amount of rural that I grew up in. The house that I grew up in was like 120 years old, and so there was no air conditioning or no central heat and air, and so it was all like rotary fans, and like that's how we cooled ourselves off, was rotary fans, and so we would always sleep with the doors open. So like I didn't know locked doors. Like we just never locked our doors.
Interesting.
The screen door was always. It was always the main door was open. The screen door sometimes would be open too.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, I guess I was. I don't know. I was the suburbs. So I was technically, I guess, I wasn't an urban kid, but I guess I was a city kid, more I guess than either of you were. But yeah, it was just the idea that we wouldn't lock the doors is just unfathomable.
Well, now it is, like, obviously, maybe even though that said, like, I sometimes I'll sleep here with my door open. It'll just have the screen door or the outside door.
Well, Los Angeles has those, like, not screen doors, but the, like, hardcore.
That's what I've got.
Like, like iron slatted exterior doors that are, those are, for all intents and purposes, as strong as a regular door.
I just like sleeping in the open air.
Oh, sure. Is that what these podcasts are usually about, Billy Ray?
It varies, but yes, more times than not, we talk about screen doors.
Screen doors, but is it often stories about like the worst, drunk?
Sometimes,
bad or
sometimes.
Yes. Billy Ray, getting back to your story, was that a drunk thing or a drug thing?
Drunk.
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 You said
drunk.
Okay.
Drunk. Yeah.
Because it could have been. It sounded a little drug, honestly.
I was not really doing drugs at that point. That was before I had started experimenting. I mean, pot, sure, but like outside of that, I hadn't really started experimenting with drugs at that point.
Right.
I would happily,
but you just didn't have access.
I had access. I mean, I grew the street.
In chapter 7 of the Billy Ray story, drugs would be introduced.
Yeah.
I lived across the street from the bootlegger in our area. Lived across the street. So
so this podcast is just Clay has South questions.
He made
because wait, when you say the bootlegger, does every neighborhood in the South have a local bootlegger?
Every community does. Mm-hmm. And this guy made homemade moonshine, PGA, but then he also weirdly like imported like Canadian Mist whiskey. And so he would sell Canadian Mist whiskey for like $5 a bottle, and then he would sell PGA for $10 a jug.
Out of his home?
Out of his home, yeah. And you would just go and get whatever you needed. And so he lived there. Right down the street was a meth lab. So I had access to plenty of drugs if I wanted access to drugs. That wasn't a problem.
Incredible.
Yeah, the South is just, and then these people, both of these guys were members of what we called the Cornbread Mafia.
Wow. That's an interesting title.
Yeah.
Billy Ray, why is that not like a pilot you've written or something?
Yeah, seriously.
The Cornbread Mafia, are you kidding? You could sell that to AMC with a fucking 3-sentence pitch.
What's funny is I have actually been working on a pilot for a show called Deep, which is about the Deep South. It is not about the Cornbread Mafia, but I guess I could introduce it.
I mean,
I was thinking actually like a theatrical play, like a stage play. I think that would be cool. Like a Cornbread Mafia stage play, sort of like a
like Earl, Cornbread Mafia, and me.
Like, yeah, I was thinking more like a David Mamet style, like like mafia heist type of thing, but like with these Cornbread Mafia.
Cornbread, or I mean, it would probably be like a Martin McDonough, but from somebody who knows anything about the South.
Clay, that's exactly what I'm thinking, and that would who is better than Billy Ray? I mean, like he totally could pull.
I often refer to Billy Ray as the Cornbread McDonough.
I'm going to start using that name from here on out. That's amazing. The Cornbread McDonough. Wow.
Yeah. I heard he's got a new movie, not to divert too far, but I heard he has a new movie, Clay. Were you freaking out about that?
Yeah, okay, yeah. Anything that was announced within like 2 months of quarantine times, I've sort of has evaporated.
About.
But it was a new movie with Farrell, right?
Yes,
with Colin
that's
Farrell.
right. Oh, and what's his face? And
Gleason also?
Yeah. No, it was like a reunion of them, but not a sequel.
Right, yes, and it was another Irish thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love McDonagh. I love all of his plays. And I love In Bruges more than anything. But I can't get into Seven Psychopaths aside from a couple of moments. And Three Billboards was just like, it just felt like karaoke. It felt like a guy who did not know the South, did not know America, trying to say a bunch of shit about America. And it was, I really didn't have time for Three Billboards. But the idea that Martin McDonagh
here, though, that Three Billboards is not the South.
No, it's
Missouri.
Well, so
yeah,
the breadbasket.
From the point of view of an upper Midwesterner, Missouri is basically the South.
Wow. You are making waves today, Clay.
I apologize to all of our Southern listeners.
Yeah, I don't know.
Roll Tide.
Yes, of course, always Roll Tide. But no, the idea of McDonagh going back to Ireland with Farrell and Gleason is like, that's just about as good as it gets, I think.
Well, that's actually we're talking about flicks now, so that's a good segue. I'm going to ask an actual.
We did it.
I'm going to ask an actual question.
We got to flicks.
Good.
I asked the same question to Clark Wolf, and she had some very interesting answers. So what do you think the state of the film industry and the film business is going to be post COVID-19?
Do you mean production? You mean new movies and how we go forward?
Yeah, one of the things that we were discussing was the theatrical model and what that was going to look like.
Sure.
And just in terms of like, also just what production is going to feel like. Like,
yeah. I was having this thought earlier today in broader terms, in terms of film distribution, production, but also, things like theme parks and whatnot. And there were a bunch of pictures being circulated on Twitter today of like, oh, this bar in the South is like, this is how they may open the bar. And it had those plexiglass shields in between every seat. Or they're like, this is like a model of how you could play poker in a COVID casino. And it was 4 plexiglass shields and people's hands underneath the plexiglass. It's like, I'm really having a hard time making my brain believe the idea that we're going to reintroduce ourselves into society with just fucking masks and plexiglass and capped capacities. And like, a part of me just wants everybody to fucking go into a hole for 18 months and then be able to come out and we put a pause on life, and then just life goes on in a very extreme way. Than this like rollout of this very bizarre, very like filmic, dystopian society stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I'm having a hard time wrapping my brain around the slow rollout thing, and I don't see how maybe something like The Mandalorian, where they're like, we create all of our environments on screens. You could get the 25 key crew and cast people tested, and then it's a locked set, and you can make something like The Mandalorian. But beyond that, I don't see how production gets going again until there's a vaccine.
Well, that's what Tyler Perry Studios is doing. They're basically moving all of the cast and crew into the studio, and because they shoot really quick anyway, he shoots really quick, so it's like moving everybody in. They're just going to live there for like 3 weeks, and they're shooting like 22 episodes in 2 weeks.
Yeah, but like, how do we do location shoots ever again?
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like, but they're also like, everybody's getting tested right when they come in, and like, I think testing is going to be the key to it. But I also think you might see a lot more of that, of like it becoming like more of a communal thing, where like everybody's coming together and basically just living together while they're shooting something, and like, and not letting anybody on the outside in. It's
really it's gonna affect, less based on that model, it will less affect key crew and actors. I mean, it'll affect things like catering and stuff. Like when you go to a place and then you have to patronize local businesses and stuff to get the production made, like it'll really change how people are housed and fed and things on shoots.
Yeah.
Sure. But then again, I mean, the thing with production is when we get to that point when people start to, I mean, we're talking about it now and everybody is talking about it now. And I do think I agree with you, Clay, that is 100% preemptive, that right now is not the time to be, I think we can handle honestly another summer. I think we can go the entire summer, honestly, with keeping everything shut down the way it is right now, and everybody will be fine. If they need to find money, they will find the money. Granted, your normal person, may have a difficult time, and I feel for anyone going to a food bank, of course. However, I don't know of anybody that's actually doing that, to be honest. I mean, I know of people who are nervous and anxious, but the reality is, until there is any like regular testing followed by tracing, maybe possible treatment, anything, it's a pipe dream. And I know this on a personal level because, again, I literally am the general manager of a theater. So I know that this conversation is happening in every business across the country, and it's an extremely tense and anxious like conversation to be having, because you're literally talking about, people's lives here. If you open, as you said, Clay, at one point, to do it makes you look awful if something goes wrong. Like, not just awful, but literally it's a killer in so many different ways. So, I mean, I do think that, like, until they keep talking about the word breakthrough, I do think that we are all talking up our asses. We're blowing smoke on a daily basis, and I'm kind of tired of it. And it's fueling all of these problems throughout the country in terms of protests and people getting all fucked up. Honestly, it's this conversation that is doing that. But I think, when we talk 7 months down, go ahead, Clay, I'm sorry.
No, it seems like a conversation that we're sort of having in spite of our, better sense and better judgment, just to keep ourselves sane. Like, we have to be like, okay, well, hey, looking forward, when we reopen, even if there isn't light, like literal light at the end of the tunnel yet, we sort of have to carry this on.
Agreed.
So we don't, go all into pits of depression.
Yeah.
But
as they said, as many have said, let's also not let the cure be the enemy of the good, and keeping people alive. And so, yes, I do agree with like talking about the theoretical when, as far as when this happens. But I also think that people easily confuse that with it's going to happen in a month or two. Right. And that's at the very least here in California, that will not be the case. And I think that the more we absorb that, I think it's going to be better in the long run. Where we end up, I do think, is going to be two different places in terms of movie production and then movie distribution. Talking about theaters is obviously an extremely different conversation than talking about producing a movie.
And that I feel like that landscape is going to be entirely different, because, I mean, especially with the Paramount decree struck down, and now you're seeing like Amazon thinking about buying AMC, and like I wonder how long it's going to be before most of the major chains are owned by streaming services, and like all of, I personally don't think the theatrical model is going to change drastically. I think there's always going to be theatrical. Like, there's always going to be a place for films, and for even indie films. I think it's just going to be who's owning those entities now that's going to be putting that stuff out.
Exactly. And in a way, I'm sorry, and in a way that will be a good thing, because prior to COVID, that conversation was always problematic. Yeah. AMC was the middleman. And like, it goes back to the age-old rules of like, you don't want studios owning theaters, there's monopolies and all that. But we live in a different time now where like that conversation is archaic, when frankly the middlemen are actually the worst parties. It's, the studios are making content and trying to get it out to people as many ways as possible to make as much money. I mean, the theatrical like model of like, we got to wait for the movie to be made, and it's going to stay in this theater for a month, and then it's going to, that's got to go away. It's got to go away. And AMC, in a sense, will be probably the biggest casualty.
I mean, God, I was getting I was having such a good time with that A-list there the last 12 to 18 months.
Yep.
I love the A-list so much.
I hope that COVID casualty is A-list.
I hope that the world's first trillionaire Jeff Bezos keeps the A-list around once he owns AMC. But like, the Paramount ruling did not foresee a future in which 1,500 screens were owned by one company. It was regional chains, small town single screens. It was about, keeping competition and making sure that studios couldn't edge out, small businesses. And that's just, we now 90 years later, we're in a place where 3 companies own 90% of the screens in America fucking anyway. So what difference does it make if AMC is owned by Amazon? They're not going to say, fuck you. I mean, unless we get into real Demolition Man franchise wars territory, they're not going to be like, fuck you, Disney. We're not going to play the MCU movies because we're, on some sort of power trip. It just doesn't make any sense.
No, it's they're going to share the wealth. I mean, that's going to be at least the name of the game for the next 5 years, right? I would think this reshuffling's only going to, like, I don't know. I think it's been a long time coming, and I think it's going to be a good thing.
The most interesting thing to me, and this is a conversation that predates COVID, but it is, when they're putting out stuff like Trolls World Tour, and The Hunt and Scoob out today. 1999.
So excited for that.
To rent is not only is the theatrical model, does it have to do with literal, we can make however much money bringing in people. And this is something that comes up on our show Screen Drafts, is just getting that stamp of theatrical release is just a demarcation of quality. That was like, this is a certain type of movie. It is good enough to go into theaters. And then that means something beyond theaters. When something comes to home video, having been in theaters still matters. It is a mark of being for lack of a better term, a quote unquote real movie to some extent. And of course, this has been getting watered down the last 5 years with Netflix and Hulu and stuff. But like, if we lose that traditional theatrical model, the thing I'm most worried about is, like, for people who like to categorize movies or, decide on what movies they're going to see, you have to like use some factors to whittle down your entertainment choices, and losing that stamp of this is a certain, quality, deserves a certain amount of consideration because we were able to attract this type of talent and this type of money, be predicated on the idea that it was going to be presented in theaters. If that goes away, and there's a total flattening of the theatrical landscape. It's gonna be so different. I can't even think out that far of how different that will be.
I do not think we are in danger of that. I don't think so. No, I do not. I have no doubt in my brain that when life returns to normal, or starts to even return to normal, people are going to try to take that risk. They will, but again, there's going to be mitigating factors that will lessen that risk. And I think that we're going to get to a point where people are going to go, God damn it, I want to go to the movies again. I cannot wait to fucking go to the movies again.
I think people want to go to I think people want to go to the movies. But just think about Scoob. Scoob, which came out today, I've never said Scoob this many times in a row, and I'm embarrassed about it. Like, Trolls World Tour was early enough in COVID, and it was a sequel to a theatrical movie that it felt like, oh, this is a unique, isolated thing. Scoob, to me, in my brain now, is indistinguishable from something that would appear on VOD or Netflix and be forgotten about, and I don't have any opinion about it at all. But if it had come out in theaters and there had been billboards for it and posters for it, it's an antiquated idea, but like it would be lent that legitimacy that I think things are the next, 6 months or whatever, 8 months, 10 months, however long this goes on. I think there's going to be a whole batch of movies that are just going to inherently lack that subconscious legitimacy that theatrical releases.
Yes, that is true. However, I do think in a weird way we've been preparing for this by Netflix.
It's been coming
and Hulu.
slowly, yeah.
So in a weird way, I think we're all okay with, accepting what Netflix and Hulu have put out, on their own and Amazon and have backed up. I mean, we all know the quality is going to drop, and we all know we have a big backlog of movies that we need to go back and revisit. Everybody's doing that, and it's totally fine. And I think we're going to get to a point where everything's going to kind of fall back to normal. It's really a matter of who survives and how they survive to the point that we get there.
Well, I'll say
that I think is scary for everybody.
If there's one good thing for movies that has come out of this, I am just enamored with the fact that drive-ins are going to be a thing again.
Yeah.
Like, I love that. I went to the drive-in or last weekend, the Mission Tiki drive-in. First time I'd ever been, didn't even know it existed. And it was great. It was a wonderful experience. And like the fact that is going to be something that people are going to have more access to now is pretty exciting. I
know. And I really hope it's a trend that picks up. It's hard though. You know what I really actually more endorse? Because, I can tell you honestly, Billy Ray, that it's a fucking massive endeavor. It's a massive endeavor to do. So the idea of pop-up drive-thrus are great for small towns. This town, there's just, it's like.
Right, yeah, because people have been calling in the last day or two, to do, like you said, pop-up drive-ins.
It's intense. I mean, it would really have to be like underwritten, for this to really work. I mean, because you're not making any money and it's costs a lot of money. But I do love the idea, and I think it's something that we should think about more as a society, is that idea of like sort of pop-up community screenings, where it's like you find that local park, you fucking get a screen, and you get everybody to social distance out there. And I do think in a weird way, that's it's not exactly a Petri dish. And I think in a weird way, I would take that risk. If we were a local park where literally I had my blanket and everybody was fucking spaced and there was enough control over the environment that we could feel comfortable, I'm totally down for that. And drive-thrus are kind of an extension of that idea.
But as a manager, can you imagine, and I've worked in theaters, Billy Ray's worked in theaters, can you imagine the ingress and egress measures you would have to have?
Of course.
For that, like God, just thinking back on all the crowds I've been in where it's just a crush of people cramming through a space.
No.
I just think about those and I shudder, but you would have to have so much like hired security. You'd be like, you go, you wait.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's
you go.
It's literally, and
crazy.
you guys know the Arrow Theater. I mean, for me to get that lobby alone is a conundrum. That lobby alone, I think.
The lobby is small in the old days. Like that's a petri dish anyway.
Bathrooms are kind of a thing to talk about. Like you just have no idea how, everything has to be mapped out. Yeah. Exits and entrances. The movie is over. Now everybody gets up at the same fucking time.
Yeah. Can you imagine like something even smaller, like the New Bev?
No.
The bathrooms at the New Bev?
It's again, like you have to have somebody literally cleaning that bathroom after every person goes in. One person goes in, they come out, it is cleaned, and starts over again.
And that's why I cannot even imagine the rollout reopening.
No.
Yeah. Like I can't even I ideate it. It's just it's such a foreign idea.
It really is. It really is. And they need to dispel the ideas that this thing is necessary. I completely understand reopening the economy, but again, like it's in a weird thing where it's like, God, if we only had Bernie at this point, because I feel like we don't
need to reopen the economy. Money isn't real. The government could just float everybody for 18 months and then reopen. Like, there's no reason why that wouldn't work, except for a whole different conversation. But.
Yeah, there's no debt if everybody stops. If we stop at all, there's no debt. We're all stopped at the same time, but again, like you need true leadership to do that, and that is just not what we have right now. So it's
see, Ryan got to talk politics like you wanted to.
A little bit. I got a little bit in. I really did. It's that flag behind you, Billy Ray. It just fucking triggers me.
I'm glad that it incites patriotism in you.
It does. It does. I want to talk turkey when I see that.
Well, guys, that was the fastest happy hour we've ever done. I mean, not fast in terms of time, but fast in terms of it blew by so quickly.
Oh,
super fun.
Yes.
It just.
I'm curious what everybody is drinking though. I didn't ask that up top.
I drank a Shiner Bock. That was my go.
Beautiful, Ryan.
I've got this Santa Monica Brew Works California Blonde Ale. It's
nice,
delicious.
Nice.
I've got a what they call a crowler, which is 2 pints. This is from McLeod Ale, which is a Valley brewery, which is near my place. So this is poured fresh out of the tap and canned on site before I picked it up. But it's called a Leaving for El Paso. It's a cream ale.
Wow. Yeah. We're both doing local breweries, Clay.
You know what? I've loved the going to support local businesses that I like. Like I think Billy Ray, you guys have both been to McLeod Ale up in the valley.
Yes.
It's a great spot, and I have acclimated surprisingly quickly to the whole like order online, go with my mask on, support, pick up, order more than I usually would to support the local business. That's a habit that I've picked up more quickly than I would have assumed.
Hey, when in Rome.
When in Rome. So this episode will drop after the upcoming Chattanooga Film Festival draft.
Oh.
So this will drop after that. So I guess I'm curious. What do you expect from that draft? And we'll see if you're right.
Okay, yeah. So for Chattanooga Film Festival, we've done now in the past.
It was so much fun.
It was a blast, obviously. But it would have been a 70s horror movie 2-part mega draft. With you, Billy Ray, and Graham Skipper, and Clark Wolf and Chelsea Stardust. I don't know. I feel like it's always interesting when we do these mega drafts because they carry with them this sort of elevated importance. So we like to bring in, kind of big guests for them. And oftentimes that means that the guests have not played the game before.
Yeah.
We draw them in with this sort of marquee topic. And then they don't know what they're walking into, and it's a bit of a shit show. So I am very curious to see how quickly Chelsea and Clark acclimate to the game. And of course, Billy Ray, you and Graham are two of the most veteran players. And you've caused a little bit of ruckus in these type of shows in the past.
No.
So
both of them have.
I am curious. I think this will not be as upsetting to audiences as the Freddy versus Jason draft was, because I think, Billy Ray, before we got on mic, you were saying that you think there's 6 or 7 kind of titles that could acceptably be number 1. And so I think if we get any of those in the top 10, I think this will be, we're splitting this into 2, or we've split it into 2. So I think that the second episode, that's 10 through 1, is going to be more, if those have the key titles, I think people will be.
What do you think will happen if I play Texas Chainsaw Massacre at 20? I don't know.
Speechless. Wow.
I feel like I've never been a huge fan of that franchise. I respect it. I respect the historical importance of Chainsaw Massacre until the cows come home. But I would not be offended by that. But I suspect a few of the drafters may be. I'm also going to try and rewatch that one because it's been a while. And it's actually been probably 10 years since I've seen The Exorcist as well. So I'm going to try and rewatch that before we get to the...
I can tell you what will happen, Billy Ray. You will be vetoed. That's fucking clear.
Well, yeah.
I want to apologize really quickly to Chris Devlin, who hopefully is listening, about that Texas Chainsaw Massacre hate. He is a former drafter and is.
I don't hate
Thank
it.
God
and-
Clay
no,
is
no,
not
no, no.
playing.
and wrote the script for the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So
Love Chris. I think the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a landmark. It's really the second one that I cannot get through.
Yeah,
But
that's
again,
not what we're talking.
Yeah.
Texas
So
Chainsaw could be number one.
It could be.
Easily,
It
very,
could
very well
acceptably
could be number one.
It sure could. It absolutely could. I think there are a few films that could be number one. I think. I've got a couple outliers. We'll see how that goes.
Here's the danger, Billy Ray, and you know this. You know this is the danger. If when there's that many acceptable number ones, people will be reticent to play them back on the list. So we're going to get to a position, unless, and I'm going to put this on you because you know better, but unless you take the lead and direct the game this way, we're going to get to a 3-4 picks left, and we're going to have Alien, Exorcist, Jaws, Texas Chainsaw. All of those will have been undrafted because different people will want different ones to be number one.
That's very possible that could happen. I will say this: I'm going for that number one spot this time.
Yeah.
You want the number one?
I'm going for number one this time.
I feel like you deserve it, and I think you'll do the right thing. I mean, I'd say that actually, weirdly, Clay, the bottom 10 to me are going to be more controversial than the top 10. I'd say the top 10, the final, if there's controversy, it is how they are ranked. If something falls too low, like, again, there's just crazy fan favorites amongst those, 7 movies that you're talking about. But I'm really hoping that the bottom 10 actually enhances certain movies that need to have a light shown on them. Because there's so many great movies from the 70s that are weird hybrid movies. Like they're horror movies / this, or they're horror movies / that I think, really could use a bit of a highlight.
I just hope that Halloween gets left off the draft entirely, just like The Thing got left off the Carpenter draft.
You just, all confidence just has left my soul for you. Clark Wolf is getting the number one spot. That's the truth.
I feel like I'm going to be the champion of the people for this draft.
To that point, Billy Ray, the 70s have so many auteurs that need to be represented in some capacity.
Halloween can be left off the draft entirely. You heard it. I heard it.
Billy Ray's just fucking with you, Ryan. Come on. I hope, and this is a little bit of a spoiler for if you have not listened to the Screen Drafts David Cronenberg draft yet, I hope that one of the early Cronenbergs ends up on the list somewhere.
Absolutely.
Because 70s Cronenberg was not well respected on the David Cronenberg Screen Drafts.
Yeah.
So you're really rooting for Shivers.
I love Shivers. I like Shivers and Rabid both quite a bit. There was a little bit of shade thrown on Shivers on our show as being a little bit rapey, which it certainly is rapey. But I love Shivers. I think Shivers is an incredible. Is it his debut or is it just an early?
Sort of. It's sort of his first quote unquote horror film. Prior to that he made art films. I
think Shivers is quite something.
Yeah, it really is.
And I would have liked to have seen it on the David Cronenberg draft, but at a 20 or 19 on the 70s horror.
Maybe.
I will say I had a drafter message me, I won't say which one, and asked me if I considered the Rocky Horror Picture Show to be horror.
I received the same text message.
So
what did you say, Billy Ray? Because I said I have not seen Rocky Horror Picture Show.
I said no.
What, Clay?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it because it was you guys both know this. I abhor audience participation in theater.
No excuse.
And I abhor even more forced audience participation that borders on hazing. So I have never been to a screening of Rocky Horror because I cannot think of something that would make me more uncomfortable than being harassed by a bunch of people in their underwear.
You can also just watch it at home.
I could.
Anytime.
I could. But
Anytime.
I said, like, you know, something has to have, you know, even if it's a horror comedy, there has to be some gore, some, you know, satirization of horror tropes. So I don't know how that applies to Rocky Horror because I've not seen it. But...
I told Graham that to me it was no more a horror film than Young Frankenstein was a horror film. So it's a lot of things, but it's not scary. And
I wonder if Graham's going to try and play a bunch of macabre comedies.
I told Graham that it was.
Did you get the text as well?
I did.
Yep, the cat's out of the bag. It was Graham Skipper, everybody.
Since you guys brought it up, I wasn't going to say shit. But I fully accepted Billy Ray. I fully accept it.
I don't.
That's crazy.
Well, Billy Ray, it sounds like you'll have to veto it if it comes up because
True,
Ryan and I are. Am I gonna have to watch just alone in my home Rocky Horror Picture Show before?
It wouldn't hurt you, Clay.
Weekend?
I mean, it's a fucking classic.
It would only make you a better person.
And if anything, like that's the place to see it. I totally understand where you're coming from, and so like, but you have to see it. It's a cultural milestone.
All right.
And a great movie.
Guys, I'm going to end the happy hour officially by doing some plugs, and then we'll go off the recording phase of this. So when this drops, we will have already done Child's Play and The Thing. So the next read will be The Breakfast Club on May 27th, and then followed by My Girl on June 3rd. You can follow us on the socials at Scripts Gone Wild, except for Twitter, where we are at Crunk for Charity. Website.
Are they going to get that fixed, Billy Ray?
At some point. Who knows when.
Ridiculous.
And then you can follow us on, if you want to support us on Patreon, patreon.com/scriptsgonewild. You can also go to scriptsgonewild.com for more info about all of that. And
Ryan, what's the next one you're doing?
What do you mean? Screen Drafts?
One of these. Scripts Gone Wild.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm doing Flight of the Navigator, which I'm super psyched for.
Yeah.
What part am I playing, Billy Ray? I have a recommendation, but
I sent the cast list out.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I sent it all out. It's in your email.
Sorry, I'm really bad with emails.
You're so. Do we need to figure out a different system for you with?
Look, I'll look at it now. It's not a big deal. It's still weeks away.
That's true.
I'm fine.
My final words for the listening audience are like and subscribe to us on YouTube, and
also check out the Fast and Furious draft in July.
That's also a good idea. So I think we're going to end it with all three of us at the same time going ride or die.
Billy Ray, I live my life a quarter mile at a time.
2, 3.
Ride or die.
Ride or die.